Welcome, everyone, to Gems from the Wisdom Traditions, a conversation circle that is sponsored by Still and Moving Center on these Saturday afternoons. And we are this week taking up the theme of paradox. Perhaps one of the paradoxes that we've heard so often. And it's been put in similar ways by different people. I think it was Pierre Desjardins who said something like, we are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. And that in itself causes, I think, a great deal of paradox to have to be looked at. And today we have David Sanders, and I believe a guest of his that I'm going to let introduce. But we have David Sanders, who's been a yoga teacher of Still and Moving Centers almost since we started. He's attended many of these conversations and contributed greatly to them. He's also participated in our satsang conversations almost since the beginning of Still and Moving Center as well. So he's somebody that we know to really have quite an aptitude for deep thought and practical thought, both at the same time. He also is a great student of human nature, and he recently went in deep into the field of psychology, and he's a psychotherapist himself now. And I would like to turn it over to him to begin our conversation on paradox.
Thank you, Renee. Thank you for that gracious introduction. And as I often do, I would like to welcome us all into a more internal space. So if you wouldn't mind joining me, perhaps with your spine a little more erect, take a moment to close your eyes and just feel your breath. No need to change it, just notice. Notice the weight of your body in the chair, the pull of gravity, and that subtle movement of inhalation and exhalation. Delicious. Now notice something else. There is sensation, and there is something aware of the sensation. There is breath, and there is something aware of the breath. There are thoughts drifting in and something aware of those thoughts. See if you can sense that quiet awareness. Does not strain, does not argue, and it does not age from moment to moment. Just rest here for a few breaths. Noticing awareness. Take a breath and gently open your eyes. So I'm going to read for you today something that I co-authored called The Paradox of Being, Eternal and Embodied. A little personal story to begin with. When I was recently in the emergency room, my heart was misfiring, irregular, unpredictable, mechanical. There were wires attached to my chest, a monitor blinking numbers, nurses moving calmly around me, and I remember thinking, my heart is unstable, but something in me is not. Something was watching. Something was aware of the fear, aware of the uncertainty, aware of the body doing what bodies do. That was the moment the paradox became very clear to me. I am a body, and I'm not only a body. I'm 72 years old, and there's something in me that has never aged. I'm shaped by history, attachment, memory, trauma, and personality, and there's something in me that remains untouched. That's the paradox of being. F. Scott Fitzgerald wrote, "The test of a first-rate intelligence is the ability to hold two opposing ideas in mind at the same time and still retain the ability to function." I just love that. Paradox is not contradiction. It's not confusion. It is two truths that appear incompatible, yet both real. Theosophy speaks of the higher self and the personality. Yoga speaks of Purusha and Prakriti. Christian mysticism speaks of the indwelling spirit and the fallen nature. Psychology speaks of the observing self and the conditioned nervous system. Different languages, same paradox. You are eternal consciousness, and you're a human organism with habits, moods, hormones, and history. In my therapy office, I see this every week. A client will say, I know I'm loved, but I don't feel it. That's the paradox. At one level, there's a deeper knowing, stable and intact. Yet at another level, the personality carries wounds, attachment patterns, survival strategies. The higher self knows it is whole. The personality trembles. The higher self is spacious. The personality reacts. In internal family systems, we call the deeper self, the deeper layer, self, calm, curious, compassionate. In Buddhism, it is awareness. In theosophy, perhaps it's the monad shining through the vehicles. But here's the danger. If we over-identify with the personality, we forget our depth. If we over-identify with the eternal, we dismiss our humanity. And many of us do both. There's two ways we collapse the paradox. The first is, we would call it the spiritual bypass. I'm not my body. This is just illusion. None of this really matters. That can become a subtle rejection of incarnation. The second is psychological reductionism. You are your conditioning, you are your trauma, you're your nervous system, and that dismisses the mystery. But incarnation is not a mistake. The personality is not an error. The soul does not float above life, it enters into it. Movement and stillness, still and moving, it's not branding, it's metaphysics. The body ages, the body misfires, the body gets anxious, the body carries memory, and yet the body is also the instrument through which the eternal expresses tears, laughter, anger, creativity, and repair. I recall when my Labrador puppy died in my arms, I felt overwhelming grief and guilt. I felt like I had failed her. That was the level of personality. That was conditioning. That was attachment. And yet beneath that grief was something else. Love. Love that didn't disappear when the body disappeared. Love didn't age. Love that was not damaged. The soul does not protect us from human experience. It allows us to survive it. So how do we live this? Not by resolving it, but by widening. When fear arises, ask, who is noticing this? When shame arises, what part of me feels this? And what part is watching? When joy arises, can I fully inhabit it without clinging? The higher self is not somewhere else. It is the depth dimension of this moment. The personality is not an obstacle. It is the vehicle. There is something in you that has never been injured. There is something in you that has been deeply shaped. There's something in you that is eternal, and there's something in you that will not last forever, and both are true. And maturity, spiritual maturity, psychological maturity is not choosing one over the other. It's becoming vast enough to hold both. You are older than your thoughts. You're younger than your next breath. You are the witness. You are the one who trembles. We're not here to resolve the paradox. We're here to embody it. And today, I'm delighted to introduce my dear friend and mentor, sometimes tormentor, Dr. Paul Fishman. Paul is a psychiatrist and certified Jungian analyst who trained at the Jung Institute in San Francisco and has spent decades helping people explore the deeper layers of the psyche. He served on the faculty of the Jung Institute, worked in many community and mental health crisis services, and other volunteer posts. His work bridges psychiatry, depth psychology, and culture, always with a focus on the human challenge of holding life's opposites with awareness and compassion. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Paul Fishman.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
And thank you all for having me. David, that was lovely. It sounds like me, a little bit. Tormentor especially, yeah. David and I have known each other for 25 years. And I am right across from the Still and Moving Center right now. It's right over there, down a little ways. and have been there for yoga classes and would love to come back. So I also have been thinking of joining this GEMS group for years. I think David invited me the first time 4 years ago. And as I have 2 other meetings on Saturdays, I have declined up until now. Fortunately, one of those canceled today, so I had time to meet with David during that hour, preceding our time together. We've been conspiring to get this talk cooking for the last week or so. And in dialogue, we decided that we might co-present. So here I go. As psychotherapists, are we all psychotherapists? No. As human beings, I think we struggle with our kinship with physicians. As I'm a psychiatrist, I've had this struggle in spades. What we struggle with is the messaging in medical school, for those of us who went there, and then the confirming experiences in residency, that our main job is to keep our patients alive. Even without medical school, I received plenty of messaging, as did you, from our culture that life is sacred and ought to be maintained at any cost. Again and again, of course, we would-be healers fail. The inevitable is not going away. Death does not take a holiday. We witness finitude again and again throughout our lives. And the longer we live, the more it's true. We don't need to be the hospital staff to bear witness to the Grim Reaper's arrival. Many of us gathered here today are hopefully evolving to value the counterbalancing notion Johann Sebastian Bach came to by 1736, when he wrote the sacred aria Komm, süßer Tod, Come, Sweet Death, the longing for death to bring peace. And later in the message inherent in the name Jerry Garcia chose for his band, the Grateful Dead. So maybe death doesn't have to be also grim. Remember the discoveries Prince Siddhartha made on leaving the palace? The discoveries that began his transformation into the Buddha, namely illness, old age, and death. Remember Dustin Hoffman and Little Big Man as the aged chief opening the flap to his teepee in the morning, taking a waft of the morning air, and on his first exhale intoning, "Today is a good day to die." And then he goes on and lives his life. In my morning meditation, for years, I've been saying these words silently to myself. And then I add, today is a good day to live, and today is a good day to heal. And with that, I bring my attention to that part of my body or psyche, or to someone I know who is suffering, or to some far-flung war zone, perhaps, praying for healing. Healing has the same root as wholeness. To be healed is to be restored to being whole. But here's the paradox again. To be finite is to be part of and apart from the whole. To be eternal is to be whole. I'm going to turn now to physics a bit and neuroscience, where discoveries in the last century have contributed to our understanding of paradox. Before these discoveries, we did not know what we did not know about how these opposites can both somehow be true. Ian McGilchrist touches on both physics and neuroscience in his huge book, The Matter with Things, a 1,600-pager I'm struggling to read. I've actually thought of getting a reading group together to try to read it together over the course of some years. In both arenas, physics and neuroscience, he sees splitting. We are split in just the way reality itself is split. We are part of a world of finite things in time and a world of living, unfolding, infinite wholeness, with the corpus callosum, that hard substance in the middle, serving the hemispheres to allow for dialogue between the two. Most of what the corpus callosum does actually, though, is alternating suppression of one side or the other, depending on what's needed in the moment. In order to survive, as we evolved, to avoid being prey and to have something to eat, we need to focus in and quiet the right brain's holistic perspective. When it's time to rest and play, we need to quiet down the left's obsessive predilection with detail and vigilance. Unfortunately, as culture has evolved, its preference for left brain control is putting us at risk of catastrophe. Or is it just already happening? Some of that is unfolding this very week as things have heated up even more in our world. McGilchrist is pessimistic about our capacity to rein in the path of destruction our reigning rulers are bent upon, behaving as if the world is their toy to control. However, he holds out the hope, with hope being a verb, that humanity has the capacity to exercise our right to get it right. He talks of his cautious optimism that we might re-engage the right's hemisphere more relational, receptive way of attending to the world. He argues that our civilizational crises stem from a left hemisphere style of attention that treats reality as static, fragmented, and controllable. And he presents his work as a plea to learn again to see in a fuller, more responsive way aligned with the right hemisphere. He believes this shift would reanimate our sense of the world as living and sacred, and temper our drive to dominate nature and other peoples, and open possibilities for wiser, more humane forms of politics, science, and spiritual life, even though he stresses that such a change is not guaranteed and depends on our collective choices. He argues that the hemispheres are not two modules that do different tasks, but two irreducibly different ways of attending to the same world. The left hemisphere tends to fix, fragment, and abstract. It cuts time into instants, space into points, beings into manipulatable things. The right hemisphere, by contrast, sustains an experiential sense of a flowing, continuous, interconnected reality, more like a living presence than a set of objects. He often contrasts map and territory. The left's map is precise and finite, while the right keeps us in touch with the open-ended, never final territory that always exceeds any representation. Our inner struggle in this view is that we are animals who must act within finite, bounded bodies, yet we intuit and sometimes participate in something more like an ongoing, eternal process of meaning, value, and relationship. I'm just thinking now of that saying, the finger pointing at the moon is not the moon. The finger is the map. The moon is the territory. McGilchrist insists that health is not choosing one side, but allowing the dialogue. The finite map must constantly return to and be corrected by the living territory. Our difficulty is that the left's finite clarity is so powerful and reassuring that it tends to eclipse the right's more ambiguous but deeper openness. In addition to his reflections on the human mind, McGilchrist explores the contribution of quantum physics to our subject, especially its treatment of time, uncertainty, and superposition, which give an apt language for thinking about the tension between finitude and eternity. At the subatomic level, systems are described, oh, by the way, I do not understand this sentence, but I'm going to read it anyway. At the subatomic level, systems are described by a wave function that evolves smoothly and reversibly without picking out a single definite outcome. This is going to become a little clearer.
Oops, we just lost your sound there, Paul.
Really?
Now you're back.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's funny because what I was saying was that I don't understand this sentence, and then you can hear me.
Oh, we lost you again.
Oh no. What is going on? How about now?
We hear you.
At the subatomic level, systems are described by a wave function that evolves smoothly and reversibly in time, without picking out a single definite outcome. Before measurement, a system is in a superposition of possibilities. After measurement, we register one concrete result, a single click, a single this rather than that. On the one hand, we have entanglement, which means parts can't be fully described in isolation. On the other, we have the level of experience in which events show up as definite, local, finite. The measurement problem is the technical expression of this split. Physics itself is forced to live with a tension between an underlying open set of possibilities and the concrete finite world in which we partake. We here refers to both us humans and to the stardust we're made of, the subatomic particles whirring around and through us as we sit together today. I'm going to have another reference to Carl Sagan, which with the guy we began with today, thank you, with a poem at the end, poem or two. And electron superposition possibilities point to an enduring open wholeness, to infinity. The specific result in a detector is as finite and mortal as a heartbeat. Our existential predicament, finite bodies that nonetheless somehow are also privileged with the knowledge we exist in an eternal dimension, is inscribed both in our neurology and in the structure of physics theory. The brain's hemispheric dialogue enacts within one's skull a drama that physics finds in the world, between a continuous, open, context-laden reality and the discrete, bounded events we must live through one by one. Of course, we still don't know what we don't know. And for most of us, or maybe it's fair to say all of us, we can't know what we cannot know when we are locked in ego consciousness. For that knowledge, we need other aspects of experience which ego does not trust. I think I'm conflating ego here a little bit with left brain, which is not fair, but bear with me. Jordan Peterson speaks of creating and connecting with beauty as a way to address this paradox. I'll read him in a moment, but first let me say it reminds me of Jung's first sentence in his final large piece of writing, Mysterium Conjunctionis, the mystery of the conjunction of the opposites, in which he puts forth the notion that all of psychological life unfolds in oppositions, in irreconcilable oppositions, in paradox. The factors which come together in the conjunctio, Jung writes, are conceived as opposites, either confronting one another in enmity or attracting one another in love. And now a diversion to developmental theory, which I hope you find enjoyable. Tom Ogden and Melanie Klein have some names for our early and ongoing psychological development. In the womb and shortly after birth, we are in what Ogden named the autistic contiguous position. We don't have a clue. It's all about the rawness of experience as the monad we know ourselves to be. The infant is as if merged with the universe, with eternity. We start in wholeness, as if wholly given over to the right hemisphere's wisdom. Left hemisphere development really takes off in 3-year-olds. No wonder the 2s are so terrible. Soon enough, though, we move on from the state of I am the world and the world is me to the stages Klein discovered as she watched her own children engaging with her good and bad breasts, with their awareness of the reality of separateness. That is, her kids' awareness of the reality of their separateness from mom, because she's a person who sometimes gives them the good sweet milk and sometimes she had asparagus the night before and it doesn't taste so good. I never liked Klein's pathologizing language, but now I realize it aptly names the baby's distress that emerges when the milk tastes bad, or isn't available when wanted, or is forced when all I want is to be changed, or held, or whatever. To turn a phrase, just because you are not paranoid and schizoid doesn't mean the world is going to be kind to you, to conform at every moment to your wants and needs. This is the phase where what we call borderline personality organization unfolds, with its splitting of good and bad, its failure to hold the opposites, because it can't. Then comes the depressive position. Klein's term, again, is not meant to pathologize. It does not reference affective disorder, major depression, or bipolar disorder, but rather the healthy capacity to hold the opposites, if with some sadness that the world is not always as we wish it to be. Even if we were graced to have the good enough mother, as D.W. Winnicott describes her, she cannot help but fail us from time to time, and in the failing prepares us for the reality of the world in which we live. And so where are we? I just lost my spot. D.W. Winnicott. And so, hold it we will. And so we get to carry this capacity for sadness for the rest of our lives, realizing that life is a mix of opposites we are tasked to hold. and hold it we will, so long as our resilience to trauma ratio is robust enough so we don't regress to splitting. And back to McGilchrist, our right brains remain robust and are ready for our left brains to relinquish their dominance and allow us to become integrated wholes. This is another way to speak of the task of individuation. Jung has it that holding the irreconcilable opposites in consciousness is how we individuate, how we create something new in ourselves, from ourselves. Male and female create new life. The river above and the river below create the waterfall, which is neither of those. Sunshine and rain clouds create the rainbow. Right and left brains, what McGilchrist calls master and emissary, are best when integrated. That is the task of our lifetimes and the task we face as we consult with patients as they find their individuating ways. And now here's Peterson finally. He's controversial, as are Jung and Klein, and who among us does not have a shadow? So I'm not one to cancel Peterson. So here goes. Making something beautiful is difficult, but it is amazingly worthwhile. If you learn to make something in your life truly beautiful, even one thing, then you have established a relationship with beauty. From there, you can begin to expand that relationship out into other elements of your life and the world. That is an invitation to the divine. That is a reconnection with the immortality of childhood and the true beauty of the being you can no longer see. You must be daring to try that. Buy a piece of art. Find one that speaks to you and make the purchase. If it is a genuine artistic production, it will invade your life and change it. A real piece of art is a window into the transcendent, and you need that in your life because you are finite and limited and bound by your ignorance. Unless you can make a connection to the transcendent, you will not have the strength to prevail when the challenges of life become daunting. You need to establish a link with what is beyond you, like a man overboard and high seas.
I think we lost your sound again, Paul.
Where, okay, how about now?
We
Yeah.
got about the real piece of art is an entrance into the transcendent, something like that, and then we lost you.
Are you hearing me now?
It's muffled. It's sort of muted. Is that coming through your
Don't know
computer?
why. I haven't changed and I haven't touched anything or changed anything. I'm going to switch to my phone for Zoom,
Yeah.
and I won't be looking at you, but I'm almost done. Well, you can't hear me.
We can.
Oh, you can.
You're good
Wow.
now. Yeah, I would say, oops.
Perhaps you can hear me?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay, so I'm going to hold this here, and I'm almost done reading. But hopefully this will hold us. Buy a piece of art, he writes. Find one that speaks to you and make the purchase. If it is a genuine artistic production, it will invade your life and change it. A real piece of art is a window into the transcendent, and you need that in your life because you are finite and limited and bound by your ignorance. Unless you can make a connection to the transcendent, you will not have the strength to prevail when the challenges of life become daunting. You need to establish a link with what is beyond you, like a man overboard in high seas requires a life preserver. And the invitation of beauty into your life is one means by which that may be accomplished. And I will conclude now. I made two poetic efforts 15 years ago that links to our discussion today and to the introduction from that back of the calendar for Still and Moving Center. These poems are called Stardust 1 and 2. Stardust 1, just before the Big Bang, we were very close. And since that moment, billions of years ago, we have all been stardust, till love or lust planted seeds in fertile fields, like Rumi's fields, beyond right doing and wrongdoing, where we wake up and meet up and wake up new hope for our world. Stardust 2. You and I, we used to be so much closer. Until that day you drifted away right after the Big Bang, so explosive, cataclysmic. I was sure I'd never see you again. But here we are again, so close, your stardust and mine, both now shaped into human form with minds more bonobo than chimpanzee, so that all is music to my ears, our rhythms, even our dissonance wakes my desire to reach out, to touch you where it pleases you, to remember how close we were, how close we still are, how good it is to know you now, still, again, forever. Thank you.
Magnificent.
Thank you, Dr. Paul.
Yes, thank you so much. Well, this is a time when our conversation opens up to all of us for thoughts and questions we have on this idea of paradox, perhaps even experiences, as the one that David shared, for example, when he was so strongly feeling that grief at the loss of his puppy in his arms, and also at the same time having that serene awareness of something that a love that was beyond that that really terrible sense of loss. And surely we've all had such paradoxical experiences. It's hard to know how to, keep it all. And I noticed that Paul mentioned the right brain, the more expansive aspect of ourselves, becoming more robust. So that the left brain can relieve itself of its will to dominate. That would be a lovely thing to do. And David talks about maybe approaching this paradox when we, the mind just can't quite grasp it. We just more like expand into it. We expand ourselves to embrace it rather than trying to nail it down. Did I get something like that right from you, David? Did I get that expansion? Okay. I see Cliff has his hand up.
Both of those presentations were very wonderful. I think you guys combined the poetic and the psychological in a wonderful blend.
Yes.
I was struck, especially David, about the way you spoke about the witness element that seems to be unchanging throughout life, even as we get to this ripe age of being in our 70s. And I was thinking maybe, the title of the dance center that Renée has, the still and moving center, like you mentioned it's not just a marketing device. Mm-hmm. There's something fundamental about stillness and movement and the paradox that the two of them have in us. I'm thinking of the Gita in particular, that Krishna tries to bring together the Sankhya and the yoga doctrines, the doctrine of contemplation and the doctrine of yoga. And he says that the wise being is one that sees inaction in action, and inaction in action, and action in inaction. So that somehow by combining those two, somehow it's kind of a mysterious paradox in a way, but I was wondering if you could say something, both of you, either or both of you, about this ability for a human being to have a part of their self that doesn't change and another part of themselves is always changing, and how you put those together. It's a paradox about how we're built as human beings, as self-conscious human beings.
And can we open it up to everybody besides just the two of them?
Sorry. That's my general question.
Great. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any hands jumping up there?
My mom's. Nancy? Let's see. Go ahead and unmute in your lower left corner. I thought you had something to say. I didn't want to call on you if I was wrong, though.
I live a lot in the left brain. I try to live more in the right brain. But I remember going to a workshop once, and it was a good illustration. Said, if you're on top of a hill, you can be up there and look all around and enjoy the wonderful views all around. But then something makes you have to go down to get home, you get to your car or whatever. And it's a good thing your left brain kicks in, because you have to figure out how to get down from that mountain.
Yes.
So I always thought that was a good
Beautiful.
illustration.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. Thanks for sharing that. I imagine you've had that experience.
Me?
Yes.
Yes, literally.
We just hope that left brain keeps kicking in. Paul, I think you had something.
Yeah, I can't see everyone. So if someone else is ready to speak, I don't want to jump in, but
No, go
I'm
for
going to
it.
jump in now and
Yeah.
say that what came to mind for me was a story from, I don't know, maybe 25 years ago, when I had my last conversation with my great aunt Ethel. And I was talking with her, and she was in her late 90s at that point. And it was kind of a goodbye call. We were both aware that she didn't have that much longer. And she said she looks in the mirror and she is shocked to see this wrinkled old lady looking back at her, because she still knows herself as an 18-year-old. And my reaction at the time was really just so disappointed for her and in her for having failed to develop her capacity to grow old and to embrace her aging body. And now I'm not quite 70 yet, but I'm getting there. And I hope to make it to my 90s. I get it more and more. I get where she was coming from. That youth is in us, and this old person is in us. And it's a tough one to hold both of those in awareness, and all the points along the way, for that matter. Yeah. And the ones that haven't come yet that we can imagine.
Mom, go ahead.
I dream. Every time I wake up, I'm in a dream. So most of my dreams, I'm not an old lady. I can be all different ages, but often I'm a teen. I'm certain, I'm a young person. So I may still be a teacher, but I'm a young teacher. It's, so it's really interesting. I don't dream of myself, as an aged person. It's that way.
Mm-hmm. We were talking about the self that changes and the self that is changeless, and that changeless self that seems is where life is. So no wonder one might see oneself, internally,
Yeah.
from a more youthful perspective. Yeah. Marianne, and then Carolyn. Marianne, I was calling you. You good? Do you want to say something? Okay.
Hello. Sorry about that. Getting back to my screen. Thank you very much. I liked the poetry very much. That was lovely. And I like the practice of the prayer that you brought forth. Today is a good day to die. Today is a good day to live. Today is a good day to heal. And I feel that what came up for me is trauma triggers that thrust that paradox into imbalance. And I've been watching that in my own life for the last couple of years and really seeing, well, normally I'm a child that remembers being a child and can stay, lucidly connected to this dream state through everything I do. And then linear practice and find my keys and get down the hill and everything that I need to do. But what I found is when turbulence hits, the real knowing of the two being separate um, comes in, and I go, whoa, do not know how to hold that chariot together. So I was really struck through both of your presentations, and just watching my brain do that and shift is what I've been keenly aware of witnessing, that paradox. And it was kind of almost like, I can see where the dance is enhanced by ritual, by breathing, by all the elements that we find our way to do, by the connection of that eternal person that we remember when we see them, and we're immediately grounded or connected. So I think that all those examples that both of you presented gave a really good acceptance to the idea of paradox, which always drives me nuts, you know? So I wanted to thank you, but just it's that when you're thrust into the wobble of trauma, or the remembrance of what war might be like, or empathy going over the top with regards to what is an everyday person experiencing in a war-torn area. I need a way to kind of remember and to bring myself back into that whole brain, wholeness, unity, consciousness. So it was just very intriguing and comprehensive. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just want to add at that point, and it's just at that moment of turbulence where we are thrown back into our left brain because we need to be there to find our keys, to get down the hill to safety, to deal with whatever's after us, that we can't engage. The right brain's, the corpus callosum has shut the right brain down for us, or quieted the way down. So it's really not easy. Where, therefore, I think it's so important to have practices in our daily lives to foster parasympathetic right brain wellness, wholeness. It might help us in those moments a little bit, but to some extent we're beyond help, because we need to focus in and deal with the trauma, even though it was 50 years ago.
But just to follow up, as the owner of an art gallery, I get you, because my wish is that people walk in and, as I have, and found those purchases, and they are in my small little home and bringing me that comfort. So, that I think is a great, Ian's suggestion of that is right on, because it hits at so many different levels when it does connect with people. So thank you for that.
Carolyn, I believe, is next, yeah?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Find your unmute button there.
The last two comments perhaps answer my question, which is, I think, a challenging paradox for many people. We might assume that establishing fairly early on a well-ordered life. I know some people are very focused on their goals. And so things will go better. But on the other hand, you could say that if you make a decision too early or too strongly, you may find out that you're going down a wrong track. And it's better to be very open-ended, to be open to very many alternatives to what you might dedicate your life to, and the way you might pursue it. So I do think that's one of the fundamental paradoxes of life. go for something very specific and firmly, or to kind of be open-ended, and maybe you're 45 years old before you make up your mind about what you want to aim for in life. Does anybody have any thoughts on that?
Well, I have a life experience of really not having any ambition in terms of, what my career, what my job was supposed to be. So I went into school teaching because everybody in my family was a school teacher, all the women. And then we had 3 kids under the age of 5, and it was too expensive on a school teacher salary to hire enough babysitting for all of them. So my husband here, Cliff, said, well, why don't you come join my landscaping company? We'll probably do better with you there anyway. I was making about $8 an hour, by the way, in my school teaching position. So I did that. And then that grew into a much bigger company. But I really didn't have any ambition until I was in my mid-50s and realized, oh, I need to open a movement studio when I was at a NIA conference, and came home and told Cliff that this was something I needed to do. And he said, what do you mean you need to do it? I don't know. I just have to do it. And so I was fine with all those other things leading up to when I finally knew what I had to do. I just, whatever kind of presented itself in the moment, okay, I'll go with that. I can live with that. I'm doing fine doing that. I was okay school teacher, and it's okay being in the landscaping and construction businesses. Did well. But I didn't know what I really needed to do, as I said, till I was in my mid-50s. And all of a sudden, then I knew. Then I could galvanize and do it. I'm a little bit of a late bloomer, obviously. But I think, staying open, but yet still following something, and following it steadily. I wasn't a dilettante and doing this, that, and the other things until the right thing came along. That worked for me. Not really knowing, but okay, let's just do what seems to present itself now. And when I actually did this, and this goes back to another part of the conversation, when Paul was saying that you need the left brain in a trauma situation, but if you cultivate the parasympathetic nervous system, the right brain's wholeness in our daily life, maybe it'll be available to you in a more traumatic situation. And that is what Still and Moving Center is actually about. It's about being centered, aware at a still point within the midst of the motion of our bodies. Our body's in motion, but inwardly we're still, we're centered. So that, and this is on the movement floor, right? Whatever the movement is that we're doing. And even it could be in the air doing aerial, but I mean, it's within that context. So you walk outside the door and all of a sudden you've got life swirling all around behind you, all around you, everywhere. But you've had that experience of being in motion yourself with a still interior. And so you have a better chance. I have a better chance, and it's my experience, of keeping that still center when I am out in the midst of all the hubbub. And so that's what it was created for, is exactly what I think we're trying to approach right now. But I didn't realize it until we had this conversation. Diana.
Well, I'm sure glad you blossomed at 50 so we can all benefit from your gift that you give to all of us. So thank you.
55.
55. I want to say the paradox that I have been working of, especially this last year and especially the last 6 months, is the idea of being aware of what's going on in the world and the pain and suffering and not living that pain and anger and fear. That I don't want to put pain, anger, and fear out into the world. And I want to live peace, joy, and love. I don't want to lose my moment to and be lost in the anger. I also don't want to put that energy out. So my spiritual practices, my faith, my meditation, my trust in God and prayers, I pray a lot because I can't fix anything that's happening. I can do the littles that I do, but it's like, how do we stay, how do we, like I watch, when I watch, I want to watch the news because I want to know what's going on. I know some people say they won't watch it. I play my game or I crochet because I cannot just watch it. I need to have something that grounds me while I watch it, and then I'm aware of what's going on, and I can do the things that I can do of kindness and love to others. But I think it's important that we learn how, with so much anger, fear, and unknown in this world, that we need people to hold their center, to give love and compassion, and to see all the places that love and compassion come out in the world. And so that paradox sometimes is easier to hold than others, and I know many people don't have that center, and I think that's why it's really important for the people that do have faith and trust in spiritual practices to really diligently hold on to that joy, peace, and love, and not lose our moment to feel the love of those around us or the joy that we have. And but it's a very difficult, sometimes it's more difficult to stay in that when I see all the bombing and all the stuff that's going on. And so I just was curious how other people work with that for themselves with all that's going on in the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. Paul, before I call on you, I'm going to see if there's somebody who hasn't spoken yet who might want to respond. Yeah, go ahead, Bob. You've almost got it, I can tell. That lower left button, so tricky. I can tell Mercury's retro because everybody's having exactly the same situation today. The meeting I was in just before this had a 15-minute delayed start because the two speakers couldn't figure out how to turn on their tech. While you look for that, Bob, I'm going to call on Dishen. Okay.
I have two cups in front of me, and I was thinking about, darkness reveals what's inside the cup, and the light, actually, darkness showcases what's hidden inside, and the light reveals what is embodied.
Can you
And
explain that? I don't understand what you just said.
Say more.
Yeah, because I'm looking at a clear glass of water in the light. So I'm not sure how I understand the darkness.
it is in the dark you will be able to find what's hidden inside something, and it is in the light you'll be able to see what energy is embodied within. And
Okay.
the paradox is to be in those two, both the moments, to work diligently or observe diligently to see what is hidden inside, and at the same time, when the light appears, also observe what are you showcasing outwards. And the more clear, the more one you are becoming with yourself, you'll get much more closer and closer to be able to see clearly inside the cup, and at the same time to completely also demonstrate that expression outwards with the world. I mean, it's the simplest
Okay.
way I can share, I guess, right now.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So something about the darkness and the invisible, and the light and the visible. And if we get closer to ourselves, we will be able to not only perceive the external, but the internal as well. Something along those lines.
It's it is work, life in work, where make use of the dark to recognize what is hidden inside, and make use of the light to demonstrate your values authentically outside.
Ah, got it. Thank you. Paul and then Bob. I see that Bob got his microphone on, but Paul, you had a response.
I was just going to reference in response, was it Carolyn who was sharing most recently, who I'm responding to, about that paradox between, or was it you, Diane, again, about the conflict between, the news, watching the news and how horrible it is, and how do we hold ourselves and our joy in relationship to the horror. And I'm just came right away to Thich Nhat Hanh's poem, Please Call Me by My True Names. And if you haven't seen that yet, please find your way to it. I just found it online. I could share it in the chat.
Yeah, yeah. We actually had Z, who's clapping right now in his screen, share that poem and some others just a few months ago, I think, in his talk about Thich Nhat Hanh. So you're right on the same vibe with us, Paul. It's so cool to have you here. Bob?
I wanted to share something. I was very struck when David defined the Buddhist response to awareness as the key word. And I think that's very appropriate, because the Buddha is not a god in a perfect space. The Buddha is the awakened one. And what Diana was talking about in terms of finding, and in a way, Deshan was saying it as well, the light and dark, the hard and the other. And I remember Zen saying, Hakuin Zenji was very troubled. He was having trouble with his meditation, and sometimes it's hard. Your knees hurt, you're distracted, you're dealing with difficulty. And he said, well, if we're already enlightened, if Buddha nature pervades the whole world and right here now, then why do we need to practice? In other words, if there is this ultimate reality, why do we need to practice? We're already there. And Dogen has a wonderful answer. He said, realization is practice, and practice is realization. So it's where we are in our practice, and that changes. That's unique to us, but it's also continual. So we have highlights, we have insights, we have different experiences, but it's all practice. And, if the news is the news, well, your practice is kind of dealing with that to the best of your ability. That's always sort of assumed. And you're going to have what so-called religious experiences, satoris, insights, and you're going to have the other flip side, but that's practice. And that practice is realization. And realization is nothing but that practice. So it kind of, it lets you be a little free, and at the same time obligates you to keep going.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm realizing the time. I'd like to tell you just a tiny bit about next week. And then I'm going to ask somebody to give a vote of thanks to our two presenters, David Sanders and Paul Fishman. We can keep the mic open then for a few minutes if anybody wants to stay on, because I don't think we've finished this conversation. We've just finished in an hour. So think if somebody wants to give a vote of thanks, and I'm going to let you know that next week's topic is that of higher carelessness. And both Edward Bellamy and also Martin Luther King's quotes, I think, tell us a little bit about this. It doesn't mean we don't care. It means we just care at a much higher level that's not sweating the details, I think, something like that. And I think that the practice, the mindful move practice that I've had the privilege of learning and practicing and teaching, called Nia, typifies this higher carelessness really well. And I'm very pleased that the founder of Nia, Debbie Rosas, is going to be our presenter for next Saturday. So we can look forward to that. Is there somebody who would like to offer a word of thanks to our presenters?
Well,
Diana, thank you.
It was wonderful. Thank you, Paul and David. It's such an important discussion that I think we all need to really be aware of both sides, and the shadow side and the light side. And you both gave wonderful examples. You inspired us all with your words, and I can't thank you enough. It was really important. For me, especially with everything going on in the world and the practice that I'm doing, it was really delightful to have a place that we can talk about it. So thank you very much for your beautiful presentations.
Yeah.
You're very welcome.
Yeah.
So a philosopher, a biologist, and a therapist walk into a bar. The philosopher says, life is a paradox. We're both individuals and part of the whole. The biologist says, exactly, evolution runs on competition and cooperation at the same time. The therapist nods and says, right, and inside each of us there are parts arguing about which one is in charge. Sighs and says, sounds exhausting. They all pause for a moment. Then the philosopher says, that's the paradox of being. We come here looking for meaning. The biologist says, while competing for the last bar stool. The therapist finishes, and hoping someone will listen. Bob slides them all drinks and says, congratulations, you're all winning and losing at the same time.
Count on David to end with a joke. That was wonderful.
okay.
Yeah. So we'll keep the mic open for a few minutes if you'd like to stay on. And thank you all so much for attending. And thank you both so much, David and Paul. That was really heartfelt, well thought through. Excellent. Right brain, left brain presentations. Delightful. Yeah. Bob, we're so happy to see you back.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Great to have you.
Has Bob been away? Where you been?
Oh, distracted.
Yeah. I was mentioning you last night as we were, had some friends from the Big Island over as well, and Mike and Paul were here, and we were talking about how much I enjoy your contributions to the gems. So I was trying to find a way to poke you and say, raise your hand, Bob.
Well, yeah. But I had to struggle with some health issues too, so I was distracted by that as well.
Well, I'm certainly glad you're back. Yeah.
Yeah. Healing vibes to you, my friend.
Yeah.
And
David, are you okay from your emergency room trip that you described?
Yeah. I had completely forgotten about it until Paul mentioned it to me last night, because he's the one who, he and his partner took me to the hospital, and we're there to the emergency room. We're there kind of holding my hand while it was all happening. And I think I had sent my locus more to the eternal self than the physical self. I could not remember so much of what was going on. But yeah.
During that experience, you remembered the gestalt of it, but you attributed it to two other experiences, forgetting that one. Yeah, so funny.
Hmm.
Yeah.
then had we had a 90-minute, I was with a young client today. We play ping pong, and I thought, well, let's start today in cooperation and just see how long we can keep the ball moving as a way to develop our skills. And it brought to mind Darwin's whole idea of cooperation and competition, and how those two are this interplay that allows things to rise, right? The Olympics being the perfect example, right? The world is cooperating in competition so that we all may excel.
Perfect.
Yeah.
David, I had a story that reminds me of your joke. In the Zen tradition, if you are a resident, if someone comes from the outside, they can challenge you to Dharma combat. And if you win, then you get to be the resident and they have to leave. And so there was this one a monastery, and there was a person who was a little bit handicapped. Physically, he only had one eye, so he had a patch over his other eye, but he was also a little bit slow-witted, and the monastery priest, knew that, and he was very sincere, but also rather simple-minded in a certain kind of way. So a visitor came, and he sort of looked around. He noticed this guy, and he challenged him to Dharma combat. And the person came to talk to the minister. Said, well, I'm really scared. I don't know how to do that kind of thing. And he said, insist on silent combat, no words. And so then they did it. And the person that challenged him came to the priest and said, oh, you must be a wonderful teacher. That student is the most amazing person I've ever heard. And the priest was a little surprised and said, well, what happened? Tell me. And he said, well, I began by raising one finger and saying, there's only one reality. And immediately the student said, two, there's you and me. Then I said, three, heaven, earth, and men are interrelated. Then he raised his fist as one and said, no, no. And he's just amazing. I leave knowing I lost. He said, oh, okay. Well, then he went to bring the other person in. The person, the monk that was resident, and he said, oh, that guy was so insulting. I'm so mad. I want to beat him up. And he said, well, describe the Dharma combat. And he said, well, first he raised one eye, noting that I only had one eye. And then I said, two, you're very lucky. You got two eyes. That's wonderful. And then he insulted me worse. He said, between us, we have three eyes. And I just said, we're going to go to it right now.
That is just wonderful. I heard another version of that joke about God being one. And then there's the dual aspect, and then there's a trinity, and then the rabbi reaches into his bag and pulls out an apple, and the priest loses because it's not an argument about that. It's like it's about having lunch. I can't remember the joke quite, but the apple is about I'm having lunch, as opposed to original sin. So as he understood it. So
well, that paradox is always something we struggle with ourselves.
Yeah.
Wow.
The illusion that communication is happening. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much again, all.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you all.
Truly delightful. Truly delightful.
All right. Thank you.
It's so good to be with you.
Yeah. Thank you. Aloha.
Aloha.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.